To introduce our next guest, I'll now like to call upon Harsh Devdar. Harsh is an ex-TLCian, but he's supporting TLC ideas right from day one for the last 4 years. A big round of applause for Harsh. I'll now like to call upon Harsh to introduce our next guest speaker.
हॅलो एव्हरीवन माझ्यासाठी पर्सनली ॲक्च्युली फार मोठी गोष्ट आहे आज TLC मी ह्या साईडने बोलतो आहे बट आय कॅन वाउच फॉर पीपल हू हॅव कमिंग फॉर द फर्स्ट टाईम देर इज नो अदर प्लॅटफॉर्म विच सेलिब्रेट्स entrepreneurs like both, which has become Mahabodh now, and Gaurav, TLC Gaurav. I think that's by itself is a big achievement. When I was working with TLC Ideas, there were a lot of names thrown at us, but we thought, let's get entrepreneurs with one wonderful story. So before I introduce the next speaker, there's a small story of how I got to know her in her journey. So one of my professors used to tell me, I never understood back then, but he said that it takes a village, to nurture a child, but it takes culture to build language. तेव्हा मला काय जास्त कळलं नाही याच्यातलं. But now, when I met Paula, I understood how and what this transition is. So here's Paula, who comes from Canada, no really exposure to Marathi, Hindi, or English, of Indian English for that matter. But because of the exchange program, she got an opportunity to come to India, and she fell in love in India. Why this story is so interesting is because Paula has broken, for me personally, 3 myths for entrepreneurs. Number 1 is women entrepreneurs. I think it's still looked at a backseat. I'm sure Paula and Pallavi will differ from that, but still they have really redefined entrepreneurship. Number 2 is language. I think that's also a big barrier in India. That's where I think Paula made extremely big difference. And last is the content. I think that's having a business on content is by itself very different. Her journey, I think I will not take much of time, but it's exceptional because someone who's coming outside India and building on a Marathi language where you have no knowledge of, but a beautiful business which all of us can relate to. So without taking much time, I would like to introduce Paula to the stage. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Harsh. Good to see you. I didn't know you were here already. Hello, everyone. Namaskar Savana. माझं नाव पॉला मगलेन आणि मी कसं आलेले आहात इथे आज मराठी बोलते. Not well, but I'm trying. So that is a question that I am often asked, how did a non-Marathi person, a non-Indian person, end up starting a YouTube channel in Marathi? And for those of you who are familiar, I don't need to explain, but I would love to just tell you guys a little bit about my company, Bhadipa, to kick things off for a little bit of context. So Bhadipa, Bharatiya Digital Party, is a Marathi YouTube channel. We started in 2016, and we were the first Marathi language entertainment channel on YouTube. Today, we have more than 3 million subscribers on Facebook and YouTube. We have a larger ecosystem of families and people who watch our content. And we've gone from being one YouTube channel to having 3 channels, doing live events, producing some of the most rewarded Marathi premium web series on OTT. And we've had US tours, gone to Australia. All kinds of great things have happened for us. But again, coming back to the first question, how did I end up here? How did I end up coming here speaking Marathi to you? Well, since I was a little girl, I always dreamed of coming to India and starting a Marathi YouTube channel. Obviously, I'm being facetious, which is a big English word, which I hear a lot actually. But I didn't even know what Marathi was. I didn't know about Maharashtra until I was actually in India. I'd landed up at IIT Madras in 2012 with my first trip to India. I came from a background, I'm from Vancouver, Canada, beautiful British Columbia. And when I sort of hit my 10th standard, since we're going through those old days, since I hit my 10th standard, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was in my geography class because I always loved nature. In my geography class, watching a documentary called BBC's Planet Earth. And I was just blown away by the spectacle of what we have, of the planet that we're living on. And the cinematography, the music, the narration, David Attenborough, wow. You know, it was mind-blowing. And I thought, if I learn filmmaking, that is a tool that I can kind of take with me everywhere I go. It's not that I'm a cinephile. I did grow up watching Tarantino movies, but that wasn't my inspiration to get into the filmmaking world. And for me, I always had very low expectations of myself. This is because I took up Taekwondo. After 6 months, I quit. I took up ballet. After 2 years, I quit. Took up hip hop. 2 years, I quit. Singing, guitar, violin, all of these things I've taken up and I've quit at a young age. And my sister, they always said that she's going to be the one who will spend her little bit of money getting a down payment on a house. Me, my parents were saving up for my bail. So I was the younger of 2 siblings, and the expectations were that, maybe I will, go and do something artistic, scrounge around, have that kind of a lifestyle, and I was okay with that. And I was going to film school, preparing for a lifetime of discovery and learning, because that's what I realized I like to do. I love to travel, I love to learn new things and explore new cultures, meet new people, learn their stories. And there was an email that came into my inbox. I was in my last year of film studies, and it said, expenses paid internship for 3 weeks with an Indian VFX company. So I just read expenses paid internship, and I said, great, I'm in. I want to have a free trip to India because it's my last year. I'm going to get out. I have to start paying rent. I have to, find a job, make a stable living. And you might be wondering why I'm so pessimistic about my future in film at a young age. Well, this is because in Canada, there's a very, very small film industry. You might say that the Canadian film industry is like what Marathi film industry is to Bollywood, except they have the same language, they have the same culture. Canadian and Hollywood have much more overlap than even a Marathi and a Bollywood does. So as a result, Hollywood completely dominating the Canadian industry since, the beginning of filmmaking. The Canadian government has always played a very active part in making sure that Canadians still get to make things. And so as a result, there's some great film bodies which sponsor films like Telefilm, and it's all government funded. There isn't any private equity market for films in Canada. And you might try thinking of a famous Canadian film that you know, and I challenge you to do that. But it's because this is a heavily competitive industry where we have a lot of film schools, we have a lot of film talent, and a lot of that talent ends up going to the United States and working over there, if you want to do that. And I was not, as you know, I was not a cinephile. I was not like, oh, I want to go work in Hollywood, I want to go do that. I thought, okay, I've learned my filmmaking, I'm going to take up an investment. I'm going to invest in $10,000 worth of sound recording equipment, and I'm going to take up a services job where I will record sound for films, and I will do sound design, mixing, post-production for films, and that's going to be my calm. That's going to be my work. That's going to be my bread and butter. Right before I made that investment in sound recording equipment, I get the email and I say, yes, sign me up, because after I buy this equipment, I'm going to be heavily in the working cycle. And I showed up in India with no preparation, no expectation. I had taken my vaccines, and I had watched a few Hindi films, and I showed up at IIT Madras for a film appreciation workshop where I was assisting for a couple of weeks before I went out and did my own self-guided research because that VFX company pulled out at the last minute. So that was actually a very lucky turn of events for me. I never had too much interest in VFX. And at IIT Madras, I had the opportunity of learning that there is such a thing as South India, that there is regional languages within South India, that India has multiple film industries, and not the Shami Kapoor Bollywood vintage idea that I had of singing and dancing in the Swiss Alps. And over the next 3 months, I went to Mumbai, Pune, and Hyderabad. Nashik even, I came and had some Sula wine. And I had an amazing time, and I was so inspired by the kind of work that was happening in this country, the energy and the excitement that the creators over here had, and the competition. I was so excited to see, if you have the talent, if you have the heritage, if you have the lineage maybe, if you have the networking skills, you can pitch yourself and you can actually make something, if you're lucky. But you can actually put in the effort, and you don't have to wait for 5 years of building up your seniority and your credits before you can apply for your government-funded film in Canada. You can do it right now in India. So when I saw this opportunity, I said, I'm going to come back. I want to come back. I want to try my luck in India. I told my mom, I said, just give me 2 years. Before you say that you've lost your daughter to India, just give me 2 years. I'll see how it works. And I came back the second time, and I participated in a program which was helping research the India-Canada Film Co-Production Treaty, which got signed later in 2014 and had nothing to do with me. But that co-production treaty enabled me to speak with a lot more Indian filmmakers, strengthened my professional connections. And my third trip back to India, I came to work on a Hindi language, independent feature film in Pune based on Purushottam, the intercollegiate competitive theater competition. And that was because of the networking I had done in the first 2 trips. And on my way to my first day of work, I was picked up at Dadar TT in Mumbai by Sarang Sate and Anusha Nandakumar, who were working on that film as casting director and chief assistant director, respectively. On that 3-hour car ride from Mumbai to Pune, we realized that we had such a great bond, we had so much in common, that over the course of those few months of making this Hindi language Marathi film, we came to realize that we had some shared values that were really important to us. One is we wanted to work ethically. In this experience, we had seen a lot of people being taken advantage of, being exploited. We wanted to work legally. I was insistent on having a contract for my work, but many of the other people on the project got stuck for over a year in this project because they didn't have an end date. They didn't have any terms which were agreeable or extendable, anything like that. And we wanted to work on a good project with good people. We wanted people to be happy. And most importantly, in that experience, and this is not my eureka moment for a Marathi YouTube channel, in this experience, I came to know that there was so much talent in the Marathi industry who is not satisfied with what's happening in the media space. A lot of young people from theater who are working in television just to make a bit of money so they can buy a house and a car, and then they want to go back to independent theater. They were not happy with what was happening. They did not see themselves represented. And after this film experience, Anusha and Sarang and I incorporated our production company, Gulbaran Talkies Private Limited. And that was where we started hustling, really hustling. The idea was that we were going to work on these 4 foundational values, and we were going to do a lot of freelancing. We were going to do ads, weddings, whatever it took. We were going to save up our money, and then we were going to produce each other's films. And that was how we were going to make it. We banded together and gave each other the support. And in the first year, we shot 2 wedding films. And we realized that was not for us. We were pitching for ads. No one was giving us a chance. We were new. We didn't have a portfolio. And eventually, we went and invested our little bit of money, I think some 15, 20,000 rupees we invested, got our friends together, and we shot something called a spec ad, where it's a speculative pitch for a brand, and that was for Parle-G. So we made a 3-minute brand film for Parle-G on our own, and we released it online. And it got picked up by Best Ads, it got picked up by BuzzFeed, Scoop Whoop, whatever those platforms were at the time. And we started to get calls. And finally, we started getting work. And we started doing lots and lots of brand films. So this is back in 2014. And you're all old enough, so you remember that year, right? A lot of our fans are not old enough to remember that year. But back in 2014, this is right when digital was really starting to get a foothold in Indian culture. And brands realized that they needed to be online. And so you were getting brands opening up their Facebook pages, their Twitter handles, starting to find what's their new online identity. And what we did is we said, we're gonna come, we'll make you a video. And they said, make us a viral video. And we'll say, okay, we'll try. We'll make you a video. If it goes viral or not, that's not really up to us. But we'll do our best to put something together that people will love and they're gonna share, and it's got this organic reach. And it turned out that we were pretty good at it, but we kept banging our heads against the wall with these brands. Back then, they all seemed to think that they knew what they were doing. You have to have the main hook of the story in the first 5 seconds. All of these rules they started telling us, and we said, hold on, this is a new space. We can experiment, we can explore. And this is kind of where we ended up getting stuck in a bit of a loop. We were pitching our films, we were pitching our web series, we were pitching web series. In fact, there's a show right now on Sony Live, season 2 just released, Shantit Kranti. Sarang and I have co-directed it. That project actually started being developed back in 2014. And we were pitching it for television because there were no OTT platforms back then. And we went to this conference at Powai called Fiki Frames. And over there, there was a big banquet hall, 5 times the size of this place, where we had people from AIB, TVF, and I think Reliance were over there on stage, and they were talking about this new digital era which was coming in. And these guys had all started taking off with their YouTube channels in Hindi and English, or Hinglish, somewhere in there. And on the other side of the hall, we had a small little seminar room about the success of Nata Samrat and how now this is the moment for Marathi cinema. Now things are now they'll finally take off. We hit 40 crores, biggest so far, 60 crores, wow. Everybody was talking about how great Marathi cinema is and how the new age has come. And I said to Sarang and Anusha, is there a Marathi YouTube channel that is out there? You know, is there anybody doing something in Marathi in this space? And they'd never heard of anybody. So we went on YouTube and Googled, as any entrepreneur does when they have a new idea bubbling and they don't know if it's done before or not. You Google it first, right? So we Googled it and we couldn't find anything. We said Marathi video, funny Marathi video, anything. Nothing was coming up. Movie trailers were there, but that was about it. And the only thing we did find was on Dailymotion. If you guys remember Dailymotion, the internet's changed so much in the last 10 years. Dailymotion, there was a bunch of videos of these Marathi maushis cooking Marathi food and speaking into, you know, one of these kind of mics in their kitchen making food, and that's where I learned how to make vangachi bharit. But that told us something that, okay, these views on Dailymotion, there's like 20,000, 30,000 views on this little video. there must be some kind of a demand for this. And that was where the idea to start a new platform for ourselves and for the people around us, the Marathi youth, called Bharatiya Digital Party. It took us a year after having this moment to finally launch the YouTube channel. And what happened in that year was a lot of beatings, a lot of self-doubt. We came up with a business plan, and as you know, I went to film school, so I just went online. I asked my sister who studied she studied business at one of the leading business schools in the world, and I said, can you please help me make a business plan? And she said, no. I studied for 4 years. I paid my own money to earn this knowledge. Here's an online course. You can take that. It will sum up everything that I've learned so far. So I took an online course at Udemy, which is about how to build a sustainable business model. And I came up with this plan for a multiple YouTube channel network that would have genres of content in the Marathi language, which could potentially grow. And maybe we could replicate it in different languages. And we can do live events, and we can do merchandise, and we can do web series, and we can do films, and we can do music, and all of these cool things started bubbling up out of this idea of starting a Marathi YouTube channel. Now, the first few people we went and pitched this idea to said it's never gonna work. Marathi people, they don't watch things online. And a lot of people said, you know, Marathi people, they don't understand this stuff. They would much rather just watch Hindi stuff. Young people, they don't have any interest in Marathi. Why don't you do it in Hindi? Then they'll watch it. And this was something we just could not understand. And maybe today, it sounds like obvious. Of course, people will want to watch it. But back then, these are people who are senior in the industry, senior in business, telling us that this is not going to work. So we kept on thinking, you know, why? Why not? And we started looking at the numbers, and this was where the main market research happened. After having this idea, we only had a sample. We had our friends. We had our Marathi friends. We had the Marathi talent pool who were telling us that they don't like daily soaps. They don't want to watch Marathi daily soaps at home with their parents. And that was a great starting point, but how do we prove that there's a demand? And we went and we got one of those FICI KPMG studies. We learned some facts, a little bit of stuff like out of all of the Indian regional languages, Marathi has the highest propensity for its own language when consuming news. This is the kind of data that we had to scrape out. So while reading English newspapers, Maharashtrians had the highest preference to read something in Marathi over English, out of all Indian languages. And at the same time, there was circumstantial evidence. You know, we could see there's a thriving Marathi theater industry. I couldn't even imagine a theater industry being something where you can make money. There was a Marathi radio industry, television, film, all of these things were happening, and yet nothing in digital. And it became very clear to us that there has been nothing in digital because the mainstream industry was not representing Marathi youth. Marathi youth could not see themselves being represented in mainstream Marathi media. With a population of 85 million Maharashtrians, or Marathi-speaking people, for me, that was a really big number. That was the other thing. People would say Marathi market is too small. Today, the Marathi entertainment industry, the size of the market is $1 billion. And based on growth predictions for India, we can estimate in the next 3-5 years, it's going to be up to 6% of 6% growth. So, sorry. Not 6%. I'm not very good with numbers, obviously. We're going to go from $1 billion, and we're going to grow to be $6 billion. So there is a lot of opportunity there. Now, still, people didn't really buy into it, and we ended up launching with our own money. We saved up, and we started our YouTube channel with our first show, Casting Couch, with Amay and Nipun. And that was what really kicked us off. Suddenly, because we were working with celebrities, we were doing something different in the Marathi language, something people hadn't seen before. We got 25,000 subscribers in our first month. And I think that we had that competitive advantage because we were the first ones in the space. And that immediately triggered a bunch of people to come back and say, okay, now let's talk. And I would love to give you guys a certain analogy, which I just thought of this morning. Are any of you guys drinkers here? Put up your hand if you like whiskey. No shame. Oh, okay, more and more hands are going up. All right, so great. So if you're like me and you love a good whiskey, single malt, think about that as Marathi culture. Marathi culture is extremely rich. Historically, it's had some of the greatest talent in India. Writers, filmmakers, actors, musicians, top talent has come from Marathi. But if you are going to a restaurant and you want to have a nice whiskey, and you open up the menu, and it's only cheap whiskey on the menu, are you going to order a cheap whiskey, or are you going to go for a Kingfisher, or a bottle of wine, or a nice gin and tonic? You're not going to go for the cheap whiskey, right? So think about this as Marathi content. If you have something, there's a strong desire to have something in your mother tongue, right? Comedy translates better in your mother tongue. Emotions translate better in your mother tongue. Stories generally translate better if you're listening to it in your mother tongue. It connects with you. It's there's another great Marathi word I learned, Hrudayasparshi. So Marathi language is like that. Marathi Bhasha is this. So if you can make something in Marathi and make it good and make it to a quality that young people who are watching Narcos, Dark, Money Heist, Game of Thrones, all of these non-English shows, these people will come if you can make something that is of that quality in their mother tongue, and they will share it, and they will make it global. So the next argument that we faced was that Marathi people don't have money. Marathi people don't like to spend. They have money, they don't like to spend. You may know that there's been a couple of Marathi OTT platforms which have opened up in the last couple of years and not really taken off or not really delivered on the promise that they've given. And when I've spoken with those people, the answer is that Marathi people, they don't like to pay. Same thing with filmmakers. Nowadays, you go to the Marathi, you want to go watch a Marathi movie, there's very rarely something in theaters which can excite you. But despite that, Maharashtra makes 100 films a year, and maybe 20 of them release. And even if you have 50 of them releasing, that's one every single week. So you think that you would see far more Marathi films out there, but you don't see them. Why is that? When Maharashtra has the highest number of theatrical screens in the entire country, out of all the states, Maharashtra has the most number of screens. Is it Hindi dominance? Is it because Hindi is better? Well, if you just take a look at COVID, the first thing that happened is Hindi cinema started to flop, and South Indian languages, Telugu, Kannada, Malayali, Tamil, they started to rise, and they overtook Hindi box office like crazy, and not just in South India, but across the country, globally. You guys all know Natu Natu, and so do my parents sitting in Canada. So if Hindi was the problem, then sure, I could accept that, but it's clearly not the problem. And Marathi people, they have been paying us. Just in May, March, April, May, we did a tour in the US. Now those are like, the Maharashtrians in San Francisco and stuff, but we sold 7,000 tickets. And we toured in 15 cities. And those are not cheap tickets in the US. Then we came back. We did, thank you. It was all sarang. I didn't perform much. I just did my smelly cat on stage and that was it. Vasari meow, that's all I did. Then we came back and Sarang did his Jagat Bhari stand-up comedy tour. He had a show here in Nashik. 5,000 tickets sold in 4 cities in 4 days. We have been selling more than 3,000 pieces of merchandise every single year. And with all of these things considered, Marathi people do pay. Marathi people take cable subscriptions, right? There's newspaper subscriptions. There's milk subscriptions. Every single day, fresh milk coming to your house. So obviously they're going to pay, but if you're giving them cheap whiskey when they want to have single malt, they're not going to pay for that. So this is, thank you. Now, not all Marathi culture is cheap whiskey, right? But it's obviously not. There is some amazing stuff, and some fantastic films have been releasing this year, which is super exciting, but it's very inconsistent. So what we have done in the last 7 years, we're an old startup, okay, but we're still a startup. In the last 7 years since we started Bharipa, we've built it. For the first 4 years, or first 3 years, we were bootstrapped. Then we got a round of investment. That really took off our growth. We now have 30 employees sitting in Mumbai. We have 3 channels. Last year at the Matasan Man Awards in the digital category, I think we were 80% of the nominations. We've made 8 premium OTT series, some for platforms and some for our own YouTube channel. And we've proven that there is a demand for Marathi digital. Now, what's the next stage for Bharipa is we're ready to take on a film industry which is struggling to start, because back then in 2014, we had Nata Samrat doing 60 crores. Then it directly went, I think 2018, we had a Sairat, 100 crores. Then now we have Paipan Bhari Deva, 75 crores. But these are too far and few between. It's not sustainable, right? Half of the Marathi industry survives by doing services for the Hindi industry, because not language, not because Marathi people don't pay, not because Marathi people don't connect with their language. The actual answer is, unfortunately, the people in charge, the people producing the Marathi films right now. Systematically, it's very disorganized. There is no long-term vision and strategy. And there is, unfortunately, a lot of corruption and shady business going on. So we're going to be doing and taking on the Marathi film industry is a next step for us. And a struggling Marathi industry is what we will try to contribute to. We're not going to change it in any big way. We're going to try and be a part of it and help lift it up to the next level. And the other thing is a completely non-existent Marathi music industry. So Bharipa will no longer just be the digital entertainment brand, but we will be making Marathi pop culture. And that is what I wanted to come share with you guys today. I'm super excited about it. Our new vision, our next steps. So thank you so much for listening to the journey. And I hope that you've got a bit more insight into how we work and how we think. And at the end of it, just like you said, it's all because of the team. I obviously couldn't have done this by myself. Sarang and Anusha have absolutely been there for me, been those 2 foundational rocks which have helped us move this forward. One Tamilian, one Maharashtrian, and one Canadian. But that's the recipe it took to make this happen. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula.
Thank you.
So before we start questions, I have a complaint
Okay.
that came a week before this show was planned.
All right.
Me and my few friends who are here were drinking,
Uh-huh.
and after 2 pecks, they all complained. I and Me series, there is a character called as Babu, and people back there home call them Babu.
That's because they haven't taken bath.
As a CEO and founder of Bhadipa, how much power do you have to give Babu some superpowers?
Well, I was actually thinking, for funding our next round, making our first Marathi film, I was thinking we would do a fundraiser. We will have a live stream of Babu taking a bath. What do you guys think?
So, one more question that people was asking, what's with the name? You started with Casting Couch, then Bhadipa, then Shantit Kranti. So what's with the name? How do you come up with such funny names for Marathi content?
Well, Casting Couch, each one has its own story. But Bhadipa, of course, being the umbrella brand of the Marathi digital thing, came from Bharatiya Digital Party. At that time, we were thinking, what should we call it? People were giving us ideas like Marathi Katta and Youth Katta, and we were like, I don't know. First thing I know is that youth don't like to be called youth, right? It's like the most cringe-worthy word. No one, I'm a youth. People don't like that. So actually, we thought, why don't we have something which shows that we want to be a community, that we don't want to just be one face. Oh, that's my alarm. So we have something that means we don't want to just have one face representing all of it. We wanted to have a party, a culture of people contributing, supporting new voices, making a community. And we wanted to have something which would have a short form. So like the viral fever became a TVF, or All India became AIB. Having a short form is something that we felt would be good for searchability, all of that. And thus, the last thing was we didn't want it to be limited to Marathi, because for us, part of the vision was that our Marathi content should be seen globally. And if it's a very difficult Marathi word, people might not be able to say it or spell it or search for it on Google, so we kept it simpler. So Bharatiya Digital Party was that. Casting Couch with Ame Nipun was, Bh. Yeah, we also wanted to have something that started with Bh. Something that would sound like that. That was a requirement from Sarang, So so then Casting Couch with Ame Nipun was, we wanted it to be that titillating, clickbaity kind of a title, because ultimately it's about these two guys struggling. And we thought, how can we make the interview format fun? And we thought, rather than having a nice, comfortable couple of chairs, let's have 3 people sitting on a 3-seater couch. And that physically would make them very uncomfortable. And just change the dynamic of the interview, and suddenly it becomes very weird and very off-putting, especially for the celebrity guest who's made to sit between these two guys, struggling actor and director. So that was where Casting Couch with Ame Nipun came from. And I guess Shantit Kranti, that one Starring takes full credit for, because that was, his school takes credit for. I think Maharashtra Marathi medium school, Sadashiv Pet, Pune.
So anyone in that era would
to
connect
say
with
that.
Shantit Kranti.
Yeah, they all
So
used
not
to
just
yell
school from
Shantit
Sarang.
Kranti at each
Yes,
other.
anyone in that era would connect to Shantit Kranti. So
Yeah.
next question that we have is, you started digital work or digital content creation in year 2014.
Yeah.
Do you think you're at right place at right time, and it is the reason for it's one of the reason for your success?
No, we were too early.
too early?
We were too early, definitely. I think it's great that we were first, and that's given us a competitive edge. It's given us the, the badge, pioneers, and all of that. But what happened is that kind of copycat culture came in, and a lot of people jumped into Marathi digital without really knowing what it is. After we did it, there was a bunch of channels which started doing a similar format, and there was like 3 or 4 of us consistently putting out videos, and that was one thing where we had to be really careful, actually. And one of the reasons why Bhadipa is something which you can watch with your family today is that we wanted to make sure, we have this whole new Marathi audience coming online for the first time. We didn't want them to search for Marathi funny video and see something full of abuses and see something very shady or cringy, and we wanted them to see something a little wholesome or something funny, which they could watch with their parents. So for us, coming up with, even though it's called a casting couch with Ame Nipun, I would say it's relatively clean content. And that has kind of been our modus operandi from there. So if there would have been more Marathi people and channels happening at the same time as us, I think we would have gotten a lot faster growth, a lot sooner, because we were basically building the audience as we built our brand. And now a Marathi channel can start and it can hit 1 million subscribers just by posting YouTube shorts for a few months. But those million people were not there when we started. So I think we got a lot of benefits from being first, but it definitely made the road a lot slower and longer.
One of the things that every one of us disagree with you over here, that youth is your customer. My aunt, my mom, my dad is your audience. I'm your audience. My niece is your audience. So that is something we strongly disagree with you. Going forward to the next question, you said you started Bhadipa bootstrapped. Investor didn't budge in and you started it as a bootstrap. How difficult was? You are doing well in advertisements. You are definitely generating some revenues after that Parle Ji gig. How difficult decision it was to put your hard-earned money into something that no one showed trust?
Well, it wasn't much money, so it wasn't that bad. But, to just kickstart it, I think we'd given ourselves like a 3-month runway before we give up. And for that, it might have cost us 2 to 3 lakhs of making 6 episodes of Casting Couch and getting that going. So it was not, it wasn't so much of just investing our own money and going through that pain, because for us, we always wanted to self-produce. We started the company with the aspiration of saving up money and profits, building up those profits, and then making something new. And that was always the goal. So for us, taking whatever little profits we had and reinvesting that into Casting Couch as a show was something that came very naturally to us. And as founders, up until our investment came in 2019, we were full-time freelancing on the side. So while running Bhadipa and Bhatupa at that time, Vishay Khol came in 2019 around the same time. Sarang, Anusha and I were freelance writing feature films, screenwriting, acting, directing, doing these ads, all of that stuff we were doing on the side to pay our rent and keep roofs over our heads, while we kept reinvesting the profits into the company. So it was, for us, really important that we do both. So I don't know, it wasn't even a question, really.
So last question before we break. You do something so brilliantly that most of the companies in this country struggle to, and that is acquire talent. Few faces that you have brought into the cinema or into the content culture, like Ani or say Zui, have gone and done big banner films. So how do you acquire that talent? What is the knack behind acquiring such good talent?
Well, first of all, Alok and Mrunmay, Ani and Zui from I and Me, were already established actors, actually. They had been acting in Marathi films. Alok was an independent theater director also, still is. And Ramay also, very long history of doing theater, films, television, and all of that. So saying that we brought them in and then they went and did big banner stuff is not really correct. In fact, we were really lucky that they decided to do web content, which at that time we were worried they were going to see it as cheap, you know, like low quality, not worth their time. But after they did a few episodes with us, they added so much value because of their craft that our, you know, low budget content got elevated to a place where it was super relatable and funny, and people just, they got a whole new set of fandom because of those characters. So in terms of how did we get that talent, those are totally Sarang's connections. You know, this is the Pune BMCC culture, you know. What is it called? FC College Road, FC Chowpatty or something they call it, right? So that whole crowd who's hanging out at, yeah, Vaishali Rupali, those people, they were basically sitting there complaining about their daily soap work, and we came in and said, well, why don't we do something fun? And they said, great, because for them it was an opportunity to do something out of the ordinary, something out of their daily routine. And now I think we're really lucky because it's not just, you know, television and film people who are feeling dissatisfied who are working with us, but we're getting a whole new host of new talent. Like Bhagyashree Limai, she's somebody who's playing in the Khande Pohe show. She's the Kotrud girl, who's actually from Solapur. But so she's somebody who we're very proud of bringing in. If you guys know Just Neil Things, Neil Salekar, he actually was our social media manager for 2019 till he quit and became a big famous Instagrammer. These kind of people came to us because they saw Bhadipa as being on the edge of doing something new and interesting, and they wanted to be part of it. So a lot of these people came and approached us after a point. We didn't have to go and ask. Sarang actually used to make me do all of the calls to the celebrity guests on Casting Couch because he said if I call them, they're not going to take me seriously. But if a foreigner calls them, they'll listen. So that was how we did it at first. We tricked them with my white skin. But after that, then we started to attract the talent just from the content and what we were doing, something different, something new.
Thank you so much, Paula. We'll now take a small break for 15 minutes. There are people who would want to talk to you personally, interact with you, Jayesh and Pallavi.
Yeah.
So we'll take a break. I request Nasik TLCians to grab their plates from the first floor, and I'll request the other city members to grab their plates from the same floor. Thank you so much. We'll meet in the next 20 minutes sharp.
Yeah. Thank you.